went out on my patio. I was smoking cigarettes, and I just was fixating on this situation. And all of a sudden, I feel top of my head energy just leaving my body, and it's as if my head was tilting, like giving my energy away. It was being sucked out for a good 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then it stopped, and I went back, and I wasn't. I was like in a neutral state after that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Welcome to the season 4 premiere of Awaken Now What. I'm your spiritual awakening coach, JR.
And I'm your master energy healer, Helen.
Helen, this is season 4. Holy crap, we've made 3 amazing seasons of Awaken Now What. How do you feel?
Yeah, feeling great. And we're always having new ideas.
Exactly. We just want to say thank you to every single guest that has been on the show so far. We just want to say thank you to all of our fans. Without your guys' support, we wouldn't be able to continue doing this show. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We are so deeply appreciative. Helen has some amazing news. I don't think the listeners know about this. Do you want to tell them?
So, my big news, everybody, is that I am pregnant. And as of today, it's 7 months pregnant.
When's the baby shower?
I have a baby shower next month with a smaller group. I might do another second one so that it's not so overwhelming all the time with how big of people there are.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Helen actually just moved to Portland. How long have you been in Portland now?
It's been 7 months,
Holy
right?
crap, time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies. Show the baby bump. Let's see it. Let's see it.
I don't. Now I have to know where the camera goes, right?
Hey, my God, it's so big. Holy crap.
There we go. Yes, it's pretty big.
Oh my God, this is the Awaken Now What family. We're continuing to expand. This is amazing. This is amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today's topic is an important topic, and it's one that we haven't really talked about in depth. It is the dark night of the soul. Many of us will go through this. Helen, what is the dark night of the soul?
As a caveat, though, not everyone has to have a dark night of the soul, but it is a common journey that we go through. And the dark night of the soul is everything you knew your life and world to be as is shattered. And you come into this point of like meaninglessness.
Yeah, it's really just a shedding of the ego. It's when you realize that separation is illusion and you get a glimpse into all that is God, prime creator, and you realize you are a distinct part of that. It really flips your world upside down. It really flips it. It shatters all of your current belief systems, and you're left reeling on how to live. And that's like one of the reasons why we created this podcast is because we were unlearning and relearning how to live. I want to go into a little bit historically, which is kind of important because there are thousands of people who have gone through this process and have the wisdom to share. So the concept of the Dark Night dates back to the writings of mystics such as Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Avila in the 16th century. The 16th century, that is crazy. This is where they first coined that term. And they believed that the Dark Night was a necessary purification process that allowed the individual to be stripped of their attachments and ego in order to experience a deeper connection with the divine. Yeah, like I said, it's a shedding of the ego. And when I went through it, it felt like a part of me actually died. It felt like someone died, and I was in that mourning and grieving process. And it took me a few years to actually pull myself out of that. Did you go through the same thing?
Oh, for sure. Went through something similar as far as the dying part goes. Because with the end of my relationship, I had attached so much meaning to who I am in this because of this relationship and what I was going to become with the relationship, like marry this man, have a family with this man. And there's just so much depth of meaning. And so the person that died was the one who was going to live out that life. And it was very traumatic in the sense of so much to let go and so much to then rebuild.
Right. That's great. Great way to put it. It's rebuilding. It's rebuilding. This is a great quote. I found this YouTube video on the Dark Knight, and I think it was Carl Jung's perspective of the Dark Night of the Soul. And it says that what we think of ourselves is destroyed. Our projections are weakened. Projections are pulled back from the world or from the object.
Yeah.
Before the Dark Night of the Soul, we see things as separate from us, as outside of us, and we project our own inner turmoil on people, places, things.
Yeah, hell yeah. We don't
Right?
even know that we're doing it.
And so when that happens, the dark night of the soul is like slap you over the head kind of moment. It's like, wow, I was projecting this whole time. How did I really truly feel about myself throughout this whole time? So, I mean, it really is a catalyst for inner healing.
Yeah, which is why we had to do a whole episode on it.
Right. Yeah. And we haven't talked about it in depth until now.
Mhm.
So this process can lead to confusion, hopelessness, depression. People can experience psychosis, psychotic breakdowns. I know I did. I thought I was going through a psychotic breakdown. I thought I needed to be admitted into a mental institution. Um, However, it's because this society has hardwired us and programmed us to believe something different, to believe a different narrative. And so when you break out of that narrative, you no longer fit the mold. You break out of the box that they have overlaid on all society. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
When you break that mold, you are looked at as insane, as crazy, and you believe yourself. You kind of gaslight yourself. And the dark night is when you realize that the awakening destroys all of those programs.
Mm. Yeah, that reminds me of the Eckhart Tolle quote where he says, like, "You're meant to arrive at a place of conceptual meaninglessness
Yeah,
in regards to the Dark Knight."
right. He has a great quote. Yeah, what was his definition of the Dark Knight?
He says that it describes what one could call a collapse of a perceived meaning in life, an eruption into your life of a deep sense of meaninglessness. Nothing makes sense anymore. There's no purpose to anything. Really, what has collapsed then is the whole conceptual framework for your life, the meaning that your mind had given it.
Wow, the meaning that your mind had given it. Those are powerful words because this whole life, your mind assigns meaning and labels and hierarchy to everything, and then the dark night of the soul destroys that and literally shifts your perspective,
Hmm.
shifts your frequency, so you can see it from a higher layer and a higher level of consciousness. This is the awakening.
Yeah.
This is the awakening. Um, I mean, I want to give a good example of what society does hardwire and program you with their concepts and frameworks and ideologies, and religion also does the same fucking thing. It beats you over the head with their ideologies. There is a god outside of you that you must be afraid of, and that you must pray to. When that is, I'm sorry people, but it's complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit. And I know people are going to have their visceral feelings about that when I say that. But hey, I grew up fucking Catholic. I was in a strict Catholic household, going to church every Sunday. And if I didn't go to church, I was in fucking trouble. I was going to be punished.
Mm.
Strict. Strict. And were you religious? Were your parents religious?
Not so much in any Christian or Catholic sense. We are Buddhist. My parents are Buddhists, and so there were traditions around certain holidays where you burn incense and pray and kind of like those ritualistic things. I always
Yeah.
felt more to me like a philosophy than practicing
Ah,
religion.
yeah, the better household.
Different journey to get there because there was still the mold breaking and the ego death or
Yeah.
dying of that part of the ego.
Most of us has seen The Matrix. It's really the red pill, taking the red pill when you awaken, and that journey of knowingness after you have taken the red pill. So when you take the red pill, so for those of you who haven't seen The Matrix, Neo decides to take the red pill, and there's no going back. You can't unsee what you what's the saying? You can't unsee what you've seen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
When we swallow the red pill, when you swallow the red pill, the veil is lifted and you see things as they truly are. So before the red pill, you see separation. You see things outside of you. After the red pill, you realize non-duality, non-separation.
This makes me curious. When you first brought up the Dark Knight, you mentioned like it's the spiritual awakening and then the Dark Knight. Because I think there is also the experience of like having the Dark Knight
And then a
and then
spiritual
having
awakening.
your spiritual awakening.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a great point. That's a great Yeah. Who says it has to happen after when it can actually
Mhm.
be before and then your spiritual awakening happens? Yeah, the crumbling of illusions. And when you think about it, how those illusions have so much power over you and your frame of mind and the power of your mind and what you can do and what you can accomplish with yourself, um, and how you treat others.
Mhm.
And this is all really perception. It's how we perceive the world. It's all perception.
Mm.
And this is a great point. And what leads to this perception change?
Yeah, could be the Dark Knight you're going through or the ego death part, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're when something dies, it makes room for something else.
Yeah. Throughout life, we have these neural pathways, right, which are solidified of how we view the world. When we wake up and go through the dark night, or when we go through the dark night and go through a spiritual awakening, those neural pathways are all changed
Mm.
or on their way to being transformed. That's the whole point of the dark night is transformation, right?
What this looked like for me is that my body had a big reaction. I actually couldn't sleep for a while. I needed Benadryl to help me then sleep. I developed hives all over my belly, and so I can tell that I was transforming and getting rewired, and I lost weight to become as little as I was in junior high school as a teenager. So, huge transformation that I experienced physically.
Yeah, it was really just a shattering of my current belief systems, and I was figuring out how to live. I didn't know what was real anymore. I didn't know what was real, and it was a serious mind fuck. Yeah, I would go to sleep. My arms were burning at night. I was anxious all the time, crippling anxiety, crippling fear. I didn't know how to clear, ground, cleanse, shield. I didn't know any of that. And so there was this crippling fear of the unknown. That's really what it was. Crippling fear of the unknown. And we're talking about all these bodily effects. This and Helen brought it up. It was perfect. The changing of our neural pathways, right? Every thought affects every single cell in our body, right? We know that as a spiritual truth. Um, so when our perceptions change, right, our body reflects that. And when we're struggling with that change, our body reflects that because your thoughts, your mind sends a chemical messenger that influences every single cell in your body. So the bodily effects that you endure after this are intense. And that's an understatement. That's an understatement. And that's why, we feel the dark night of the soul in every fiber of our being. It literally strikes us to the core.
And to your point, JR, about the transformation being physically seen, you and I have both looked back at our photos from 10 years ago, 7 years ago, and compared them to who we are today. And we can totally tell the
Difference.
amount of light that comes through now, right?
Exactly. I think Christina Lopez, she talks about this. If anyone follows Christina Lopez, she talks about this major um, physical transformation. And I remember seeing on her YouTube her facial transformation from before she was awakened to now. It is night and day, night and day. But yeah, it really takes a toll on our nervous system. And like I mentioned, we're constantly dysregulated, body's in a state of shock. If you're currently in this state, Helen is the master energy healer. What can the listeners do to kind of help and aid in this type of dysregulated state in the dark night?
Something you can do real quick, even while listening to the podcast right now, is making your exhales longer than your inhales. And so you can do like a 5-7 pattern where you're counting your in breath for 5 seconds and then breathing out for 7 seconds. And what you're doing when you do this extended exhale is you are allowing your nervous system to move from the dysregulated, hyperactive state into a more restful state. And if you need more time because you are just so heightened in your nervous system, you can build up from a 1-3 breath and a to a 3-5 breath and then eventually to the 5-7 breath. And again, the point is for you to move that heightened nervous system into a more restful one because that's where true healing happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was constantly in fight or flight, constantly. So these stress chemicals that my body was sending to every single cell in my body was just beating my body down, beating my body down. So if you're going through this is a great tool and tip that Helen just gave out. Do it on the daily. Regulate your nervous system. Another thing I want to bring up is since we don't know how to regulate our aura, our energetic field when we're in that process of the dark night, our energy field is completely blown open. And what I mean by that is energy is coming in and out as it chooses. And this could be energy from other people that you've held in your field for your whole life. This could be entities who are feeding off of your energy. Yes, people, these entities feed off your energy. They literally feed off of this lower vibrational energy. I was listening to the Expanding Reality podcast with Cherish. Cherish loves that podcast. And Brandon, hey Brandon, how's it going? If you're watching this, Brandon was a guest on our show last season. He had a guy on the show who was extremely intuitive, extremely psychic. He had a girlfriend who could actually see energy and entities and entity attachments. And what he was explaining was she would observe these negative, lower vibrational beings, entities, literally feeding off of people, literally feeding off of people, just attached to them. So when you're in this process of the dark night of the soul, uh, your energy is wide open because you have zero clue on how to maintain spiritual hygiene, and that's exactly where I was. And it's should it scare you? Probably, but we're not here to scare you. We're here to inform you. If you're in that state, here are the steps to take to do that, to clear your energy, to ground, to cleanse, to shield, to regulate into the nervous system.
Did they say if the negative beings feed more on negative energies? In my mind, I'm thinking when we're in the dark night, we are in a heavier kind of sense.
Mm.
So is that what the negative entities want?
Yes, they want us all in a lower vibration because they literally take that energy. It's energy harvesting. We live in a society. They call it the surface farm, and the global narrative is to keep us in a state of fear, panic, so that we continue to feed their agenda, and they literally take our energy. This is a personal story I have. Maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, for me personally, I remember I was extremely pissed off and angry about a situation with my mom. Like
Okay.
extremely low vibration. I was angry. And this is
Mhm.
when I smoked cigarettes. So I went out on my patio. And I was smoking cigarettes, and I just was fixating on this situation. And all of a sudden, I feel top of my head energy just leaving my body, and it's as if my head was tilting, like giving my energy away. It was being sucked out for a good 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then it stopped, and I went back, and I wasn't. I was like in a neutral state after that.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. They literally siphon your energy. So clearing, yes. Grounding, yes. Shielding, yes. Protect your energy. Spiritual hygiene is the basis of this whole thing, and I didn't know that for the longest time. And so that's what me and Helen continue to preach to people: is protect your energy, because people will steal it. People will
Yeah.
steal it, and it doesn't have to be negative entities. It could be other people who are just using your energy.
Yeah, they're called energy vampires,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And these are people who have maybe other entity attachments to them that need your energy. And, I don't want to scare people, but these are the things that you'll come to know on the awakening journey. And so we went through this, and our goal is to educate others so that they're more prepared for this journey. I want to throw to a clip with my second session with Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian Andrew Bartzis. And the question was about energy or DNA and how your DNA transforms after your awakening and how it kind of affects your dark night. Let's take a look. So, my first question, um, now, as one wakes up and heals, can you explain to me the mechanics of how DNA restructures itself as one begins to energetically expand?
All right, so DNA doesn't restructure itself. Consciousness allows more light in that expands your chemical memory to
Okay.
make more dense light memories, meaning more of your spirits in your body as part of experiences.
Gotcha.
And when you reach a certain light experiential level, your DNA can have a variety of things that transpose or bring new concepts in, meaning you finished a karma and you're in a dharmic stage.
Okay.
Or you've done the amount of light converting chemical to light memories. You've done a lot of that personal work.
Right.
And the next part is the visionary stage for you.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's not a restructuring. It's what's needed for the next part of the journey.
Gotcha. Okay. Because that was something I was always confused about.
Yeah. They all dovetail into each other.
Right. Right. So not necessarily a restructure.
Yeah.
But
the new skills for the next level will reveal themselves.
Right. And it's ever evolving?
Yeah, it's an ever-evolving process, and you can take vacations from it and come back to it and learn you've lost nothing and gained a whole new point of view.
Gotcha. Okay, this is great information. Wow. He essentially said more light, more spirit becomes integrated into your body. More light becomes integrated into your body. So one level will present itself to you. Then you'll explore this lateral space. And then as you explore and move on to the next level, more skills open up to you.
That's super exciting to hear because it reiterates that everything is already inside of us. So we never have to go looking outside. It's about activating the DNA that's necessary for the next stages and the next part of growth. It's super exciting material.
So that session was about 4 years after my awakening. That was back in 2021. And so I woke up in 2017. I had that session with him 4 years later, and it really just hit home for me. You know, your DNA gets activated, more light becomes integrated into your experience, and then as you explore, um, master it, then you move on to the next level, and more light is then integrated into your cellular memory and encoded into your DNA. The dark night of the soul is really just preparation for that. Then you move on to the next steps of growth and life and experience.
Yeah, this makes me wonder what each of us, what was mastered because of the dark night of the soul.
Mm, right. And that's an individual journey too, right? What was yours?
For me, one of the things I mastered during the dark night of the soul was getting reawakened to the fact that I can choose. After this big breakup, I still tried to get back with the guy for maybe 5 months or so, and that was like me not accepting the death of that part of me. Then I was just like, "Wait a second, I don't have to keep on loving him. I can choose to not love him." And that empowerment of my own sovereignty, that was something that was mastered in that part of my life.
You can choose to not love him. Isn't
Mhm.
that powerful? Isn't that powerful? You
Yeah,
can
for all
choose
the
to
broken
not
hearts
love
out there.
someone. Yeah. You don't have to love somebody. You
Yeah.
choose not to love them. I think that those are powerful words.
What's your own experience?
For me, it was avoidance because I quit my spiritual journey time and time again. And it was only when I decided to really commit to it where we started speaking more on these topics, where I started speaking more on these topics, and where I kind of redirected my creative energy. And as most of you know, I'm a TV editor, and I create for these big network TV shows uh, constantly, and was learning how to create for myself. Just,
I felt that one.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about the purge. Did you go through a purge? We talked about this in the very first episode. So we'll bring it back up again. It's been what, 4 years, 4 years, 3 years? It's been 3 years. When we get activated and shift into this higher frequency, like we were talking about, when we shift into that higher frequency, we're forced to look at uh, unresolved traumas, fears, undigested consciousness. What was your purge like? And how did you get out of it?
I think my purge was extended.
Yeah. You purged many times, right?
Yeah, many years. But I think the ayahuasca retreat was the biggest one because there's even like the way the retreat I went to was structured, they considered the second night the purge.
Uh,
And to bring it kind of full circle with the deaths, I had a night of just dying repeatedly because I was that stubborn to kind of finally surrender and let go. Um, and I didn't really think about healing until that year. So that's like if the breakup was my first awakening, that wasn't until 5 years later that I really truly understood the necessity of healing. Um
yeah.
so the purge was a night of altered consciousness and dying multiple times until I finally surrendered, which is a big word and part of letting go of the dark night of the soul, or not resisting the dark night of the soul so that you surrender will get you into your healing more. You get into your mastery faster.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll when you surrender, you allow yourself to heal. When there's
Mhm.
barriers, there's that resistance, that energetic resistance that pushes, that repels that healing away. You really have to fucking accept it.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Yeah. For
Yeah.
me, I was like I mentioned in the very first episode, I felt like I was throwing up. Um, it triggered emotions of anger, fear, um, anxiety. I was screaming on the inside for a few years. There were multiple large tears in my aura that I had to endure and repair. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. I'm still on
Mhm.
the healing journey. We're not perfect.
Um,
I'm not perfect.
Definitely still healing.
Definitely still healing.
Yeah.
We're just like everyone else in the audience. You're really supposed to look at yourself. I want to throw to a good GIF. For those of you not watching the video, it says when someone asks you if you're okay while you're in the middle of an existential crisis. That's literally how I felt most of the time during my dark night. It was like,
And
if
it's
you
interesting
only knew.
because what years would you say you were in your dark night?
2018, 2019. Here's a good one. At Wild Etheric, right before we move to a new higher frequency, there is always a tower moment to remove everything and everyone who is not aligned to where we are going. If a lot is crumbling right now, you are making the space for more light to enter. Trust this.
It's an epic summary. Yeah.
We'll have a good one too, right here.
Oh, man.
When we're going through, when we're going through an ego death while in a twin flame journey in eclipse season and Mercury is in retrograde. And that is gold of the Joker laughing in the rain. The Joaquin Phoenix iteration of the Joker. Isn't that great?
That's really well done.
That is by Jay Giddy 32. It's actually pretty popular on Instagram. Shout out to Jay Giddy. Your content is awesome. This is probably my favorite so far, Helen.
Fuck, 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 fuck. Oh my God. I want to tell somebody. No, it's okay. It's all right. This will be my moment. Fuck, 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 fuck. Oh my God. I want to tell somebody. No, it's okay. It's all right. This will be my moment.
That's really good. I like that one
Isn't
a
that
lot.
right?
Especially
That's my favorite. Doesn't that depict what the Dark Knight, the spiritual awakening is like?
No, it's okay. It's all right. This will be
Yes,
my
yes,
moment.
yes.
Oh, Ted. Oh, Ted. I have one more, which is a really good one. This is by Becca Gaviscelli, and he says, the only thing that hates darkness in you is darkness itself. But yeah, how does
Yeah.
that statement resonate with you? Only thing
I think in the caption he writes, darkness perpetuates by keeping on hating itself. That stands out to me.
wow.
Um, and it brings us back to what our conversation about harvesting negative energies. And so it reminds me of those sayings of like when you are love, when you are light and fun in your fun energy, like you are the rebellion, right?
I got this download yesterday when I was prepping for this episode. This is what I think happens when we go through the dark night and go through a spiritual awakening. So we know that all of time, right, is happening now. All of our past, present, and future selves are all happening simultaneously in all universes, dimensions, time streams, and galaxies. Other aspects of ourself. So when we go through a spiritual awakening or through the dark night, our soul spark, our energy sends a ping to all those multiple aspects of ourselves, whether that be hundreds or thousands of them. And they all feel it. They all feel it. And other aspects of you may not be awake, but if we commit to a daily practice to master our multidimensional selves, uh, we can receive wisdom from other parts of ourselves who have gone through it, who have gone through the awakening, who have gone through the dark night of the soul. This is how powerful we are as spiritual beings. This is what they won't teach you in the history books. You can receive wisdom and healing from other aspects of yourself, and once you've gone through it, you can send healing and wisdom to other aspects of yourself who haven't gone through it in other dimensions and time streams. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
We heal along the lines of time. It reverberates throughout all scales of time. And ooh, yeah, I'm fucking channeling right now. Holy fuck.
Give it to us.
Uh, it reverberates to all aspects of ourselves, and it reverberates back to others with their own soul group, within our soul group and their own soul group, which multiplies 10, 15, 20 fold. Imagine the healing amounts of healing that you do yourself when you decide to take on the healing journey and accept the responsibility of awakening and accept the responsibility of the dark night of the soul. The healing reverberates throughout all of time and space. Wow. Wow.
It sounds like a big task. And maybe if you are somebody in the dark night of the soul, this can feel like another heavy thing. JR and I are here to just be proof to you, to show you that the dark night of the soul is actually something that's going to make you stronger.
I got one more thing. What was the biggest mindfuck for you during the dark night of the soul? The biggest mindfuck.
This is a good question. Great question. For me, it was that pain is actually a messenger and not something that's trying to hurt you or drag you along. It's that there is something the pain is showing you, can be moved, can be transformed, brings you back into your God power, really.
Say for me, the biggest mindfuck during the dark night of the soul was realizing that other people are living in the illusion.
Mm.
Other people are living in illusion. And that's something that I couldn't uh I didn't handle very well. I'm like, wake up. I wanted to wake people up. I wanted them to know what it's like. And it was the biggest mind fuck for me was realizing that other people are still living in the illusion. Now I've grown, I've evolved and realized that everyone's on their own unique path. But during that time and that process, it was wow. People just have no clue. People have no clue.
Hmm.
Fuck, Helen. This was a great premiere episode. Season 4, people. What's your now what, Helen? What is the now what?
Now you know everything you need to know about the Dark Knight. No, that's just kidding. You're gonna keep learning more and more as we do,
Yep,
same
every
as
day.
us.
Every day.
The now what? Yeah, the now what is check yourself for how much you're surrendering to your dark night of the soul, or check yourself for how much you're resisting it. Because the more you're resisting it, the longer it's gonna last and persist in your world. And how about how can you surrender? I think that might be a better question for you to take away.
There are thousands of others of people who have gone through the dark night and who can offer their guidance, their wisdom. You're not in this alone. If you've gone through it or if you're still going through it, you have access to plenty of resources, whether that be our podcast, other people's podcasts. You're not alone. This is an ever evolving journey. Wow, what a great premiere episode. And for the listeners out there, we do have our new masterclass. It's called the Awakened Mastery Journey. If you're going through the awakening, or if you've been awake for years, you could still come away with new thoughts, concepts, frameworks for you to enrich your spiritual practice. We highly encourage people to check it out. It will help you through your dark night. It's a great masterclass. So with that said, if you like this episode, please subscribe. I'm your spiritual awakening coach, JR.
And I'm your master energy healer, Helen. Until next time.
See you guys next time.